lads, welcome back. This is the Naked and Famous. All right, lads, welcome back. This is the Naked and Famous podcast. I'm Dano Cattle.
Hey folks, I'm Jimmy B.
Hey guys, I'm Rob Vieira.
Hey guys, I'm Thomas Borowitz.
Today we have our guest, Chef Tom, and he is here to talk about cooking up a storm and what it's like behind the line.
Tom, thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Tom's been a frequent guest with all of us at the Blind Pig of Westchester for several months now, maybe even longer than that.
A couple of years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long? You've been working in White Plains since we met you, right?
I work in Westchester, so I actually work in Ossining. I've been there for 7 years, but I grew up in Elmsford.
Yeah.
So always hung out in White Plains, know the area very well. So I was really excited when I heard about you guys opening up the Blind Pig and the Speakeasy. That's all something that I got into during the pandemic. I was always a beer guy, but then during the pandemic...
How dare you?
Things changed. Things changed at work. I actually lost my whole team, and I was working hand in hand with the front of the house manager, and he's a big bourbon guy. I remember going to the liquor store, and I was like, you know what? I should get a really nice bourbon. And I think the first bottle that I bought was Blanton's.
That's like the easiest decision ever.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna buy a nice bottle of liquor.
I remember it was like $110, and I sent a picture to my buddy. I was like, is this a good deal? And he's like, if you don't buy that, he's like, buy it from me and I'll give you the money tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I took it home and, gradually started appreciating the flavors of the bourbon. And then I got more interested in cocktails. And then, just coming to the Blind Pig is where I really got a lot of inspiration. And I started to realize how bad a lot of the cocktails that I was drinking were.
It's true, isn't it?
It is.
They say once you have a good cocktail, you can't have a bad cocktail.
100%. I went to Jamaica a couple months back, and it was all inclusive. I was like, this is great.
I know exactly where the story's going.
I
know exactly where the story's going.
I was like, this is great. I'm going to be able to just drink all day, not have to worry about paying for it, whatever. And then I went there and I couldn't find anything that I liked. So I ended up drinking frozen drinks the whole entire time, like dirty bananas. And I didn't get drunk, no matter how many of them I drank.
Sucks, man.
Just
Did you ever
woke up
get
with a
brain
headache.
freeze?
I did.
Yeah,
I
good
did
stuff.
because I was trying to drink them faster to get drunk, and it was just a bad cycle.
I just have like a visual in my head now of you just standing by the pool screaming, holding your head with brain freeze.
I can't get drunk. Well, they say when you get brain freeze, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, right? So I was probably walking around like that, like looking like a real weirdo.
Yeah, just tongue on the roof of your mouth.
Yeah.
I like it.
Does that really work? Has
helps.
anybody ever tried that?
I don't
It
know.
does work.
I think
Yeah?
it does.
Yeah, it works.
Oh, wow.
It makes
does.
sense. There's heat in your tongue, like any of the muscle, and you touch the top of your mouth. It's kind of like,
It does work.
Yeah.
your temperature.
So, what was Jamaica like?
So Jamaica was awesome.
How's the food?
The food was actually really good. So being that I was in an all-inclusive hotel, or resort rather, there was like 5 different restaurants, each restaurant designated to a different country or a different theme. And they did a good job keeping it somewhat authentic, but the Jamaican food, like there was this jerk chicken cart, out of this world.
I love jerk chicken.
Out of this world. One night we went out, we were drinking, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh man, if I could have anything right now, it would be that jerk chicken. And they only came around like 1 o'clock in the afternoon with the cart. So we're walking back to our room, my wife and I, and sure enough, I see this line, like with like 5 people. I'm like, what are they waiting for? And it was the jerk chicken cart.
Nice.
I was like, I got a plate for my wife, which was for me. I got a plate for me. Then I told them that we had kids in the room. I was like walking back with a stack of jerk chicken and beef patties.
Nice.
There's
That was
something
like the
about
best junk food I've ever had.
There's something about that. There's a place around the corner from us called Caribbean Time, and I don't go there as often as I used to, but I used to go over there daily. I'm like, I need this chicken. I need the chicken.
I mean, they take so much pride in it. I've a couple people that I work with that are from Jamaica, and one woman, and I mean, she just takes so, like when she's making her jerk chicken, it's like I try to be like that with everything that I make, but I really see a difference in her. It takes just the integrity and the pride is so much there.
For those that don't know how much effort goes into the jerk chicken, how long does it take?
So when I make jerk chicken myself, I'm marinating it at least 2 days before.
2 days.
Yep, and I actually just started cooking it in a cajachina, which is actually a box, a Chinese box where they usually cook pigs in. They usually do pig roast in it. So I wanted to do a pig, but where I work, there's a lot of different ethnicities that aren't allowed to eat pork. So I wanted to do something different. So being that I was just in Jamaica, I ended up doing the jerk chicken.
Could you not just tell them it's not pork?
No.
All right.
They even get offended, like if they see like the pig's head and stuff,
Yeah.
So yeah,
What
we've
about the
had
hooves?
that happen a couple times.
You reckon
Same
they
way.
can tell the hooves apart, or they can't?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so I wanted to do something with the box. We were doing a big barbecue, and we ended up doing the jerk chicken. We marinated it 3 days before, put it in there, cooked for about, I want to say, an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it was just phenomenal.
What type of heat
good.
would be in the box?
So there's basically a box, and there's a cover on the box, and the coals go on top of that cover.
Oh, nice.
So the more I think about it, the more I can't figure out how it works because heat's supposed to rise, but it works out perfectly. The skin is crispy, the meat is juicy. It's a fabulous tool. It's awesome, and
Gives
you
you
can
a
cook like
perfect pig.
15.
Yeah.
It comes out
You've
perfect.
used one too, Rob?
I haven't used one, but my friend used one at a barbecue, and I'm telling you, the pig, like, you can just, like, crack it, the skin, like, as soon as
Yeah.
it comes out of it, all that heat on top.
It's funny how the different cuisines have different tools, like more traditional tools to their own culture. Like, I don't know if you ever, the Thai people, they have like, it's almost like a barbecue that's a stew. And it looks like, I don't know the name of it. Someone's going to crucify me out there if they're listening, they know. But it's like, it almost looks like a traditional orange juicer, like that you push down on. So it keeps the broth around the edges, right? And then you just put stuff into the middle of it, and it cooks from like just like a flame underneath. But the Thai people call it like a barbecue, but to me it's more of a stew. But it's funny, like the apparatuses that are seen throughout different cultures. I feel like the natives in Australia, like they cook food under the sand.
Yeah, I know Argentinians do that. Like, they'll bury food under the sand, put salt over it, and then leave it there cooking.
It's funny how the different cultures have come up with different inventions to cook like their cuisine in like more authentic ways, right? I'd love to like have just like a sheet of all different cultures and like their most traditional apparatus for cooking. Just to have a look at it. I'm sure someone out there has one. But.
It definitely makes a big difference. Definitely does. Like you said, when they dig the hole in the sand and they wrap, usually it's actually pigs. They wrap them with like banana leaf, and then put the coal on top. And it even with the jerk chicken, traditionally they cook it with, I believe it's pimento wood.
I love
it has,
pimento.
It has like that allspice kind of scent to it. So as it's smoking, the vapors and flavor actually get infused into the meat. So
I have a lot of pimento wood at the pig. I was planning on doing some sort of smoked cocktail with pimento wood in it, but I just never got around to it yet. But now that you're saying it to me, I'm kind of inspired to do some sort of Jamaican barbecue old-fashioned with pimento wood. Maybe, like, I've often thought about this. I don't know how would you go about it, but like to smoke, I'm sure you can just smoke water. To smoke the water and freeze the cube, if you could get the right type of pimento smoke flavor into the water, then freeze the cube, and as it dilutes into a cocktail, something like that would be nice.
That would, I could see it working. I don't see why it wouldn't. I think sometimes with time, like not the herb time, but with actual time, that the smoke starts to dissipate. It starts to go away.
Yeah, definitely.
So it would be interesting to see.
You probably take a few flushes. If you might have to like flush the water. I smoked a mojito one time, and I had to smoke it like maybe 6 times to get the smoke flavor to actually stay in the batch of mojito. But I'd say if you put it through enough flushes, you'd eventually get what you want out of it, as opposed to just getting a lackluster, like little hint of smoke, you know?
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about, and I was asking Rob this earlier, I'm like, the issue for a chef passing over their work, especially when you talk about integrity and you talk about like how much people put into a dish. When you put a lot into a dish, like you have you want the integrity of the dish to stand, and then you pass it over to somebody who might not have the same care or the same passion as you do. When you pass it, say, through the overpass, and it lands in the hands of like a new waiter, or a waiter who isn't in the industry because they want to be, it's just a side hustle like that, there has to be a moment of uncertainty that you get frustrated with, or maybe not frustrated is the right word, but there's there's a problem there, right? For you guys as chefs who are putting everything into a dish, and then you see it, maybe he wobbles it, and how you plate it just isn't there anymore, and you see it go out.
Right. Well, I think a lot is anticipation, not only with that specific example, but also with, being a successful chef, right? So I would anticipate beforehand, there's a new waiter, if I know that he's carrying out the plate, I'm either going to follow him or I'm going to speak to the front of the house manager, right?
When you follow
but then
him, I'm sorry to cut across you, but when you follow him, are you disguised? Or are you following him like as the chef, like walking behind him?
I want to say probably 9 out of 10 of the times I don't even know that I'm there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, it's more
Always
disguised.
watching.
Always watching. Or I'll tell somebody else, I'll tell another waiter that, might be more experienced. Hey, follow that guy up, make sure he doesn't, whatever it is that we're plating doesn't fall. My presentation when I cook food is huge to me. I use a lot of rings, a lot of things that are stacked on top of each other. So there is, especially with my salads too. I actually sometimes will take a plastic pint container and cut off the bottom and use that as a mold for my salads to create height on the plate. And it's very easy, especially depending on the type of lettuce, if it's a romaine, something that's a little more hard, for it to fall. So I tell them, beginning of the night, during our stand-up meals, or a pre-meal rather, that if something falls, you got to bring it back, But sometimes you have a new waiter that might be experienced with an old chef, and they're afraid to bring it back because they think they're going to get yelled at. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Why would they be afraid they're going to get yelled at by a chef? That seems abstract.
Because a lot of chefs, you're in the heat of the moment, you're high stressed, and you think a table goes out, and then you have a waiter that brings something back that now you have to redo. You have to take one step back to do over again, because they weren't gentle with how they were carrying it out, or whatever it may be. Or it might be that maybe it wasn't plated correctly, and it was actually your fault. But it's just the stress of the kitchen.
I like how you took some responsibility there. That's nice. There's probably a lot of chefs out there who could do with taking a little bit of responsibility and something like that.
Well, I think anyone that you ask that knows me, that's worked with me, will say I'm a different type of chef. I don't yell often. Occasionally I get mad, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot to build up. But when I do get to that point, my friends call me Time Bomb Tom. So, so that's my nickname, and I will definitely agree that it suits me perfectly. The bomb's ticking, but it takes a long time. But then when it explodes, get out of the way.
What's your go-to for, like, let's say it's coming, you're gonna blow the gasket, right? And it's like you've accepted it. You're like, what? This is gonna be glorious. Like, that guy's fucked up 3 times. That was his 4th time fucking up. I gotta say something to him now. I'm already mad. I'm gonna blow off some steam as I say it to him. Like, do you ever take your jacket off? Like, do you have any, like, you know what, I'm going to really freak this dude out with how I'm going to go nuts? Like, I'm going to throw my hat in the soup. Like, or is it just whatever happens on the fly?
So sometimes I'll play it over in my head before it happens.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll just explode and, you know, it just happens and you almost go into a blackout stage, you know, and that's where it gets dangerous, you know, that's where you got to be careful. So I'll usually try and handle whatever the situation is before that, but I'll definitely play it over in my head. So sometimes I'll know, like, before I have the conversation with the person that dish is going in the garbage.
Yeah.
You know, so it all depends on impact too.
Yeah,
you know?
I like that. It's going in the garbage. That's like, I'm going to get the point across, the whole plate.
Right. It depends on the individual, on the impact that you want to give. You know, when going back to, like I said, that it depends on the individual, you know, I've worked with a lot of chefs that are bullies, right? So myself coming up, right, I actually cared about the food that I was putting out. So if I did something wrong and the chef came to me and just said to me, you know, that's wrong, it's not supposed to be like that, I'm going to be so hard on myself already, right? And then there's chefs that will take that and they'll bully people, you know, and they'll know, like, this is a person that's not going to talk back to me or not fight me on it, so I'm going to be harder on them. Yeah. But then the people that are harder, the people that do talk back and stuff, the chef will just kind of like brush it off or whatever, you know, because they don't want the confrontation. But what I've learned is it's got to be the other way around. Yeah. It's got to be the other way around, you know. The people that are going to be hard on themselves and teach themselves and learn on their own, like, there's no reason to be, you know, to beat them up. Don't, you know, like they say, don't beat a dead horse. But on the other side, the bullies, those are the people that you got to punch in the nose. Those are the people that, you know, you got to hit them and you know, create that impact. So it's kind of the way that I've learned to manage.
Right. Mm. How about you, Rob? Have you gotten to the explosion time where front of house, back of house, whatever it may be? Like, how do you find that the same scenario? Or
I don't generally explode. So for me, I know it's happening, you know what I mean? Like, it's building up. I try to express myself, but I never try to explode because I don't try to lose the cool and I don't want to make my team scared of me. But I've been in kitchens, and that's the kind of thing that I say is, like, sometimes you need that hard discipline, because some of my best techniques came from screw ups and like, you know, lessons learned where I was getting screamed at and I'm like, okay, I can never do this again. And granted, it never happened again. You know what I mean? But, like, if I didn't get that same discipline of being screamed at, would I be as good as I am right now? Like, probably not, right? But in a day and age today where it's troubling because you can't scream at people, you can't sit here. Like, there's no way I can be the chef that I had when I was a line cook.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like,
this is something that I think I touched on it before, but it's like, when our industry is our industry maybe 20 years ago was full of people who you could probably throw a pot at, right? And they would just brush it off. And now our industry, just through the change in culture in the world, is more full of people who are in colleges who tend to then have, like, views on how they should be treated. But it doesn't really coincide with our industry because it's a nice industry, but it's like the hours are long. You're not doing half days, right? Like, and you might have an hour of work to do after work, right? Which, like, people are, like, not about that anymore. And it's, as you said, like, stressful, and people lose the cool in the moment a lot. Like, I've seen it even amongst bartenders where it's like, you're in my fucking way, get out of my way, you're an asshole. And at the end of the shift, it's fine because both guys know it's like, that's in the moment and whatever. You know, we laugh about it at the end of the shift. But I also see with new people coming into the industry, or people who are in the industry a little while, but they come from, like, a different background, that they're very easily offended. And I've had people, like, leave halfway through a shift, and I'm like, you could be great if you could take a little bit of responsibility and direction. And expect that if you frustrate someone, sometimes you're going to feel that they're frustrated, right? A lot of people don't want to feel your frustration, and they'd rather, instead of acknowledging that they've done something or working on it, they'd rather, like, leave. And that leaves us in the position, like you said, where it's like, we're not going to get the same tier. Like, I feel like a Michelin star restaurant 20 years ago would have been ran like military grade. Like if you done something, everyone's doing push-ups until the end of the night.
Like Full Metal Jacket. Anybody
Literally.
ever see Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah.
He's like, Sergeant Paul, you get the fuck up there, or everybody else is doing fucking push-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree? It's hard to
Dude,
find
pussy up there,
good
get a
chefs
pal.
these days, good line cooks, good people that actually want to take the time to dedicate their every move to being a perfect chef. Like you don't find that anymore. It's really like 1 out of like 9 interviews, you'll probably get that one person, and you're like, oh great, I have somebody that cares.
And if you don't have that in that person, it's hard to train them too, because it's like, how much integrity do you have for what we're doing? It's gonna relate to how much how much you can take responsibility for in, messing up stuff, in wanting to get, like you said, like if I really care and I screw something up, I'm gonna care enough I want that to be perfect, as opposed to if I don't really care, and I'm probably gonna shy away from doing it again, which is gonna cause me to actually get worse at what we're doing, right? And I find that a lot in a kitchen. A lot of the people, and I'm front of house, but I deal with the back of house a lot. A lot of the people that I speak to, it's like if I tell them, oh, this is wrong, if you can tell they want to be there, they're gonna accept it and they're gonna almost step up to the plate. And then if you can tell, like a lot of people, you say something to them and they kind of are quiet for the rest of the night, they back down and they don't really step up to service in the same way. And it's like, you've hurt their integrity, or you've hurt maybe they're not passionate about what we're doing and it's not a love, or, maybe they just are only here for the paycheck and maybe it's not worth the paycheck, that kind of way there. I feel like you get that a lot in our industry.
You do get it a lot, but also like for experience, like you've seen me go off on somebody. I made somebody cry.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going off on a point where it was scary. I think he sensed my disappointment more than anything.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't screaming, I wasn't yelling. I was just like, you know better than this. Like, what's happening? What's going on? We can't do this like this. And he was on the brink of tears. Like, imagine if I screamed and yelled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he probably would have ran out.
Yeah.
But since then, 100% increase. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's twice the chef that he was, the line cook that he was.
Right.
And
I wouldn't have even called him a line cook at the time. It's
Exactly.
only now he's a line cook.
yeah,
From the effort that he puts in, and it's like the responsibility that he takes and the integrity that he holds. At the start, the same gentleman, he was like there, but that's what he was. He was there. He was just there. And there was no, he didn't have anybody overseeing him who he truly cared what they thought about. And I think that's something that you're going to find in our industry a lot. And it's you see it everywhere. We went to a place yesterday, had a James Beard Award, and you could tell the guy wasn't there. First off, like, we're not going to name the name of the place because it's a great place, but the guy wasn't there.
the main guy.
So whoever the guy is, whoever the management was, he wasn't there. And you could tell that this was a ship with no captain, right? And I think we waited like 25 minutes for our drinks. Nope, it happens. Like, we're sitting there, it happens.
Once it happens.
It happens once.
But it happened twice.
It happened twice. But then, even that it can happen. Let's say the bar's just really backed up, but it wasn't. And then it seemed the first course came out. We got a couple of apps. And then it seemed like everybody forgot that we had ordered mains. But they definitely took the order. But then we were sitting there waiting, and the people were almost like, oh, God, can we get you anything else? Like, they're going to drop the check. And we're like, yeah, the rest of our food would be great. And then we got to the point of realizing, we looked around, and it seemed very hectic. And it was like, there's no harmony here. It's definitely like the person who usually like designates and points and directs isn't here right now. And then they had a rainstorm, and they have an outside area, so a little problem like that came up, and headless chickens, everybody. And then I was speaking to the only person who really actually gave us some time was a waitress. She came up to us and she was chatting for a couple of minutes, which honestly was the least anyone could have done, because without that we would have had no interaction, which would have made the experience overall far worse. But she was only in the place relatively like a couple of months. So, and this place is there a long time. So, kind of get the feeling that new staff, the main guy is not there, headless chickens, little rainstorm, everybody's running around like they don't know where anything's at. Then next thing you know, you hear that the rain's going down into the basement, their kitchen's getting a bit of water. Then you see people running out of the kitchen holding like stock and food and stuff. And then you're like, they have no idea we've ordered food. Zero. They have no idea. But it just goes to show that without the captain, the designation, like all it takes is just one guy or one girl who's in control that creates harmony and makes the whole setting way different. And without that, we're back to anarchy, right?
Yes, anarchy. I think the most prideful point for a chef is like when he can step out of the kitchen and be 100% sure that everything is going to come out the way it's supposed to. Like that moment, like there's points where you're really proud of your team and you're like, man, we're doing a really great job, you know? But then again, like a new staff, a new person can change that dynamic, and now you got to go right back into it and be like, I got to be over this person. It's about how you train people, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I always said it, like being a chef isn't only about how good you can cook. It's about making chefs that are better than you.
Yeah.
Like if you can train someone to be better than you and to have as much passion, if not more, then you succeed as a chef.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great chefs that all they can do is cook, but they have no personal skills. They can't talk to people. They don't know how to, manage.
So I actually had a conversation with someone about this last night, and I think it's like on topic a lot. So you go and get anybody from a Michelin background, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a great chef, though they might have great techniques and they might be able to make things that taste great. But one thing that I found, and I only noticed it over maybe the last couple of years, but making systems seems to be more chef duty than just actually cooking, because the systems control the whole outcome of the restaurant, the service, the systems. If there's no, I've worked with and seen people who are great chefs, but they're not actually holding down the chef job as much as they are cooking. And the chef job a lot of the time is creating systems, designating, and making sure things are finished and done. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not good at cooking, but I don't think every great cook or every great chef can really run a kitchen and organize a kitchen in the same way and make it systematic so that the outcome is what you're speaking about, where you can walk through the whole dinner service and look around at each table and say hello, and you know that what's going on back there is systematized. It's not happening as it comes. It's not something that's up in the air. It is exactly how it should be.
Yep.
And I find that a lot of people will rely on their skill of cooking as opposed to their skill of leadership or organization, which I think are probably equally as big factors in being a chef.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Most recently, I was an executive sous chef, and I got bumped up to an executive chef position. And I remember in the beginning, it was difficult for me to figure out, because once I got bumped up, now I had an executive sous chef. So it was difficult for me to find out what my place was and where to jump in and what I needed to do. And with a little bit of time, I started to realize exactly like you said, like systems, like it's my job to create the standard, and then it's my job to hold everybody accountable to that standard, right? And I've worked with good managers that have done that, and I've worked with managers that haven't. And the difference is, I mean, it's evident, it's extremely clear. But then there's times where, you create these standards, and just like you said, like maybe there's a flood in the kitchen and there's this going on and there's that going on and things slip through the cracks. But what I've learned is you still need to hold those people accountable. Regardless, maybe it's not to the extent, but you still have to address it. You can't let it go unnoticed. And for me, that's, I always try and figure out like what one thing can I do that's going to have the biggest impact on everything else. And I feel like that's it. creating standards, creating SOPs, what we call them.
What's an SOP?
An SOP is a standard of operation.
Okay.
So depending on, it might be an SOP for a garde-manger. We also have, where I work, we have SOPs for if we're sending food to a different location besides the kitchen. What time is it going to leave the kitchen? How is the hot food going to go? Is it going to be already plated, or is it going to go, and then we have to send a chef there to plate it over there? So on and so forth. So very, very black and white. So if I'm not there, let's say I get sick and my executive sous chef's out, the next person in line could grab these SOPs, and, it's very clear for them, what needs to be done, what needs to happen. So the main thing is that there has to be someone that's going to take control, regardless of how much I trust my team. When I leave, there has to be someone that's going to take control. Usually that's my executive sous chef. But without that person there, that's when things are going to slip. That's when people are going to start taking shortcuts. And to be able to build that trust is very hard. And I think that's a huge reason, as well as why chefs work a lot of hours, is because you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave because of the fact of the trust. Is if I leave, is that plate going to go out the way that I want it to be plated? Are people going to be tasting
Well,
it?
there's the question. Will it?
That is the question. Now, I feel that if my executive sous chef is there, I have enough trust in him that I feel like it will. But what I constantly explain to him is that, us in the kitchen, all of us are a team, right? And I tell him that we're the coaches. You and I are the coaches, and then we have our sous chefs that are the captains, and then we have our team that are the players, right? But at the end of the day, we're the team. As long as you and I are good together, everything else will start to fall into place.
Nice.
And that's the way I see it, and that's what I try to drive into his head. That our relationship is really, I don't want to say it's more important than the other relationships, but in a sense it kind of is.
If that relationship's broken, then it trickles from the top down, right?
100%.
Disaster.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy of the coaches and the captains and the players. And it doesn't really take anything from anybody's position. Like the players, we will all agree, like the players are equally as important as the coaches, and the captains are equally as important as the players who aren't captains.
We
right?
said it like when you're down a dishwasher, like you can see it's like taking out like the heel of a freaking tower.
I want to put in a story here. We had one of the it's not even that funny. It mightn't sound that funny now when I go and explain it to the people who aren't here, but on the day it might have been one of the funniest things that I seen in a restaurant, just because of how the world works. So I'm bartending, I'm covering one of the guys. It's like 2 weeks ago, and one night our dishwasher, he's an old dude, gets to like 11:30 at night, and he's still doing dishes that he should have had done by 11. And the guys who are in the kitchen, the cooks, they're passing over dirty stuff that still needs to be washed, but the guy's behind. He's meant to get out at 11. The work's not done, so the guys are still passing it off to him. The line cook gets into it with the dishwasher, because the dishwasher's like, I'm out of here. The line cook's like, oh, well, you didn't get all the stuff done that you're supposed to get done. We're going to have to do it. They get into an argument. The old guy leaves, right? Nice old guy, he's like, what is he, in his late 60s or something? You really can't expect much more from him. You can only be as fast as you can. The guy leaves. He's all upset. Next day, he doesn't show up for work. So we're like, right, he's probably not coming back. He didn't mention it to us. So we go now and we start, calling people for interviews. We get a guy in. Seems like a nice guy. Got a job right before the end of the week. It was only 2 days that we had for him. He took the 6 days that he was getting elsewhere. No problem. We get a next guy. He comes in for a trial. He's what ethnicity was he, Rob?
I have no idea. I never even seen the kid.
Right. So the guy, he's definitely a Spanish guy. He only stayed for like 3 hours. He said he was going to the store to get a bottle of water or something. Never came back.
This is all happening on my day off, too.
Right.
It's
Rob's
amazing.
off, and I'm behind the bar. So I'm watching, and I'm like, right, the dishwasher didn't come back. Luckily enough, we had a guy downstairs who was doing like prep work, and he was willing to jump in. The problem was he would have had to stay till 11 or midnight. his shift only goes on to 7, so it kind of sucked for him, but he was going to do it. So he's in the dish pit and he's washing away. Next thing you know, a guy comes in, 2 bags in hands, a jacket, a bandana, and 3 baseball caps. I'm dying laughing. They're brand new baseball caps. And I'm like, he's trying to speak to me. I don't understand what he's saying. The guy I'm working with is like bilingual. He understands what he's saying somewhat. He's like, it's not really making much sense. I'm like, is he selling hats? I genuinely believe he has bags of hats and he's trying to sell hats. And then, so we're asking him how much are the hats. He's like, $20. Next thing you know, I'm like, this guy looks super familiar. Hadn't seen him in about 2 weeks. Is the old guy who had been washing our dishes. He got embarrassed about the argument and came back in to ask for his job back. I don't know why he was wearing so many hats, but we end up, the guy who was covering him just left, didn't say anything, didn't come back. So we were like, right, you want to come back? We need you to wash dishes now. So he comes back, he washes dishes, no problem. But just the fact that he put on a bandana and 3 hats to come back in and ask for his job.
That's hilarious.
Was one of the funniest things that I've ever seen in my life. And next thing you know, he jumped on the dish pit and banged out all the dishes. But it just like, I was dying laughing.
Did he keep the 3 hats on?
Yeah, he kept,
Did he keep him on when he was
no, he didn't. I don't know where they went. But here, all of us for the whole shift, I rang Rob and I was like, you're not going to believe what happened. Rang Jimmy B, I'm like, you're not going to believe what happened. I'm just dying laughing. I'm behind the bar and I'm genuinely believe that this guy's in here to sell hats. And I'm like, this is the dishwasher come back to look for this job. It was brilliant. Maybe he was selling hats on the side and then he just came back. He was like, you know what? Washing dishes is way easier than selling hats.
Yeah. Didn't make any sales today.
Yeah. But it's just funny how our industry is like that type of place where it's like, it's so organized, it's so structured. Everybody who's running it like has a certain standard that they want to keep. And then some of the players, like you said, some of the players are doing this for a paycheck. They're not doing it for the love of the game. Right. They are what you can call a mercenary. Right? Mm-hmm. And then the mercenary work can leave the other players affected big time. And that's like one of the problems that I find with our industry is you have people like us who like, I care so much about the product I'm putting out. I'm sure everybody here cares so much about the product you're putting out, but you have no choice but to work with someone who's literally doing this just for money. Mm. And them jobs are like anyone who's a porter, you know, unless you have love for the establishment, because it's hard for them to get love for the product when they're not involved in the product. They don't get to pass the product over, hand it over, and they don't get any of the feedback. You know, they're not getting any gratuity for this product.
Or if they're just doing it for a stepping stone.
A lot of them are just doing it for a stepping stone. They're doing it because, you know, they're trying to make a better life for themselves, whatever the case is. But then that doesn't coincide the right way exactly with us who care about the integrity and the passion. And then, like you said, your team of coaches, captains, and players has no choice but to have some substitute guys on it who are doing it just for the paycheck. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes that can take the harmony out of whack and create the anarchy, like we were speaking about with the anarchist with his 3 baseball caps.
Yeah, it's such a shame when you think about it. You know, one of the main problems I find in our industry, like Dano touched on, is that a lot of people that work in this industry aren't professional. They're not professionally trained. They're not in this for the long haul. Even though they might like it or enjoy it at the time, they're like, you know, I'm just doing this until I get a real job, which like irks me to my core. Yeah. You know, like a lot of these people don't understand, and Father Brendan said this in our last episode, that the role that restaurants and bars play in the community as a whole. Like some people go out to a restaurant once a week. Like, so every single week of your life, you're going to go out somewhere and spend your time, spend your money, spend time with your loved ones or your family to enjoy and relax and kick back in somewhere. And we, as, you know, hospitality industry workers, can provide somebody with that experience, with that time, with that leisure. And I find it very, very rewarding. I think, like we were just talking about the beer before the podcast started and how it can be chaotic and crazy. And remember the episode of Forks Your Man's like, I love this. This is why I do this. I drink the Kool-Aid because I love this. These people get to spend their money here. They get to come here. Yes. And I find it very, very rewarding. I find it great when somebody's like, oh man, I had a great time. Everyone was amazing. I'm like,
we recently had a wedding.
Thank you.
We recently had a wedding in the Blind Pig where people who met there asked us if they could get married there.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like, but this is how
And
many.
they're not the only people that have
No,
that
how
have
many?
met
That's
have
it. Like,
have
how
met
many
there.
relationships have started in a restaurant randomly? Like, I don't know. How did you meet your wife?
My wife and I, we actually met in high school,
Right.
but we got engaged at the Culinary Institute where I went to school in one of the
In
restaurants.
Hyde Park.
Yep.
Nice.
You guys were both students?
We weren't. She was actually across the bridge at New Paltz, but during college we never talked to each other. So
Good. Probably the best way I could have went.
yeah,
You had to focus.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's funny,
So,
right? It's like a lot
we met
of
at the-
people's relationships start, or the great point that you made, even if they don't start in a restaurant, not nine, but like a solid half of the people are gonna get engaged at a restaurant, right? Like how many engagements happen at a restaurant? How many, of the big moments in a relationship are based around the industry that we're in?
And the breakups too. Breakups happen in restaurants all the time.
I don't know.
Is
But
it?
what do you
Go
think
with
about
that, yeah.
breakups in a restaurant? That's not for me.
Oh, have
Break it up
just
in the
imagine
restaurant.
being in a restaurant where someone proposes and the girl says no.
I like that.
God
You know?
damn.
I actually
That could happen.
I had an idea one time where I was like, you know how something goes viral on the internet and then it's like the thing to do, right? So foams in cocktails, or what's like a trend in culinary, right? Where it's like, oh, we're gonna crack. Everyone wants to crack, wants to crack something, and everybody goes to the place to take a video of them cracking it. I always said, maybe in the last 3 years I've been saying this, I'm like, if there was a restaurant that went viral or just was very well known for the I don't know how you'd word it, but the whole scenario around being proposed to, right? If you knew when you went to this restaurant, there's probably a chance you're getting proposed to because they have videos of people getting proposed to, and they
I remember
set
you
up.
talking to me about
Like,
that.
let's say you come here to get proposed, and it's our job to make this a video that basically would go viral on the internet, and the whole reason for this restaurant is based around something like that, where if you come here and you get proposed to, that we're going to send out 3 ballerinas to dance around your table. Someone's going to come out in a burlesque outfit.
Box of doves is gonna open up behind you.
Like the whole 9 yards. in the world that we live in now, where everyone's video recording every sandwich, every melted lava cake, any interactive moment in culinary gets recorded and put on the internet. What do you think of like a place that solely like stood that was their game, was like, if you come here and you propose, that we do something that nowhere else does, and it's like memorable to the point where people are going to video this and you're going to see it on the internet. That was something I always like. You could, let's say, all right, $1,500. You come here, your dinner's $1,500, and we create the interactive proposal. I don't know what you'd call it. What would you call it?
I don't know, a planned proposal, I guess, but I think it would be cool. I just think that eventually women are going to catch on.
Yeah,
They're going to
absolutely.
know, okay, he's going to so now the excitement, the shock isn't going to be there because
Of
they're going to
course.
already know, there's no surprise.
Right. I think it'd be the same thing as, right, when I grew up, we didn't have, and maybe it might be an Ireland thing, or maybe it's a new thing, I honestly don't know, but the whole gender reveal. How many videos have you seen of a gender reveal where it's like, oh, have they always been popping balloons that had color inside and videoing it, or is this a newer thing? In
no, they
Ireland,
have.
it's not a thing. I only
Yeah.
seen it
No,
recently.
I
On
Yeah.
mean,
Even in the
I've
States, I've only seen it
happen
recently.
within the last couple of years.
Right, so
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying is like,
Yeah.
we know that you're revealing the gender. I know it's a different thing with the proposal, it's a shock, but how many people would give up their surprise on being proposed to for the videography and the capture in the video of my proposal. And you know how many people are like, you
They'd
tell
eat that
me
up.
you're standing on the side of a cliff and your husband has rose petals everywhere and there's a video guy over there and you didn't know you were getting proposed to.
Bullshit.
Well,
That's
They
what I'm
fucking
saying.
know. Yeah, of
You know, I
course.
just thought gender reveals aren't about to be a thing anymore because what's that state like? You can't say your kid's gender like until they choose.
Oh my god.
You can't like
It
that's
will-
not gonna be
no,
a
no,
thing
It's
you'll
anymore.
have
oppressive.
no, it'll be different. It'll be like, you ever see in Forrest Gump at the start of the football game where they all run through like the paper and they smash out the paper? You'll have to wait for the gender reveal for your kid to be like 10 years old and he'll like jump through a paper and be like, I'm a boy. And it's like, he's
Or
been a
if
boy
not, a
for 10
cheerleader.
years.
There's going to want to be
Or
a lot
he'll-
of paper.
He'll jump out a girl.
There's going to have to be a lot of paper because there's like 70 different genders. They have 70 different pieces of paper. He'd be like so
Which one's he
confused.
jumping through?
Which one? How do you even line that shit up? The logistics don't really work.
That's crazy. Though.
You're gonna have
Just
to
thought
use
about
a
that,
whole
like,
football
yeah,
field.
That's like
Honestly, I might just do it myself in the pig next week and just jump through a new piece of paper and be like, my gender's been revealed. That's all you were wondering.
So-
Or I could stick on new pronouns.
So Tom, before we started the podcast, we were talking about a couple of new techniques you're working on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something that we are, looking into a little bit at the pig. It's called freeze-dried infusions.
Right.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. I actually want to start from the beginning, how it all came to me. I actually came to the Blind Pig, and I was in a little bit of a funk. A lot of things were going on at work, and my mind was just very occupied and distracted. And I came in, and I was actually talking to Dan, and he's like, take a look at these guys, Panda and Sons. They're doing some pretty cool stuff. So I went home and he started explaining to me what they were doing, and I thought that I had an idea, but when I went home and looked, the idea that I had was not even close. So basically what I found out from these guys at Panda and Sons is the ability to remove dilution, right? From what they're doing from cocktails. So basically they have different ways of doing it. One of the ways is by taking, let's say, I believe they call it the switch, and they take 2 bottles of vodka, pour it into a cooler, or it could be 2 bottles of anything, rather. It doesn't have to be vodka, but some type of spirit, some type of alcohol, pour it into a cooler, and then freeze it. And what happens is the water freezes before the alcohol freezes. So they freeze it at a very low temperature, let's say negative 32 degrees, take it out, and now they start to strain the water out of it. So what's melting first is water. So as the water strains out, now you're left with a much more concentrated alcohol. So now when you add the flavor back to that alcohol, you're not diluting it. You're bringing it back to the alcohol percentage that it was at the start, right? So now you could take that one step further. And now when you add your flavor to the alcohol, you could add a concentrated flavored liquid, right? So maybe you're freeze drying strawberries, because now the strawberries, when you freeze dry them, 99% of the liquid or the water that's in the strawberry comes out. So again, you're left with a much more concentrated
Strawberry flavor.
strawberry, right? So if you add that strawberry, let's say to a syrup or something that you want to add to the vodka to flavor it, you're removing the water that was in the strawberry before. So now again, you're removing dilution. So basically, from going through everything and watching everything that they were doing was removing dilution, right? So now let's turn that back to a chef's perspective, right? So we remove dilution, or we remove water by reducing, right, with heat. So now this was taking it opposite, right? So now they're not using heat, they're using, cold, right? So they're removing water by freezing. So I was trying to, figure out how could I incorporate this into my food, into what I do daily, right? And I wanted it to be something that was going to be effective, not something that we were going to do. So I don't know how I thought of it, but I came up with the idea of freeze drying chicken stock, right? Because I'm very big on sauces, right? I'm very, very big on natural reductions, not using cornstarch, making a stock from scratch. So basically, going back to the chicken stock, what we do is we take this chicken stock and I cook it. I reduce it down quite a bit until it's gelatinous when it gets cold, and I put it on the pans, put that in the freezer, and then I take it from the freezer and put it into the freeze dryer. And what it does is it removes all the water within the chicken stock, 99% of it. It increases the shelf life to over 35 years, right? It removes all of the space that you're taking up in your freezer, your refrigerator for the stock. And now what you could do is you could now reconstitute that chicken stock powder, if you will, right? And you could adjust the strength of what you want it to be. Right? So if you want to make, let's say, a gloss, now you add 25% of the liquid back in rather than the full 100, right? So I had the ability to make a gloss, which would normally take me about maybe 8 hours, in 15 seconds.
No way.
15 seconds. All I had to do was add water to it, right? And then after I added water to it, I thought to myself, well, why didn't I add chicken stock to it? Then it would have been even more flavorful, right? So it's almost like making coffee with coffee, It's how someone I worked with put it. But you're really, really, really heightening the flavors, right? So imagine, let's say I dehydrate the chicken stock, I make a powder with it, I mix it into the breading that I want to fry chicken with, and then I fry that chicken in chicken fat. You're going to eat that chicken and it's going to be
That's
like,
like
holy.
chicken. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Chicken on
You know,
Holy cow,
some of
like,
the
that's
some of
the
the
most-
best things I think I've ever had. One thing that comes to mind is this pastry they have in La Cabra. It's called a rye tart, but everything that they have in this rye tart comes from rye bread. Everything. The little tart comes from like rye bread dried into a tart, and the rye cream, we use caraway seeds in the rye bread, and the rye bread is broken down into like a toast. Then it's turned into a cream, and it's just rye and rye and rye and rye. I'm like, this is crazy how much. And we also have a cocktail in the Blind Pig that Dano's worked on for a long time that's like cherry on top of cherry on top of cherry on top of cherry. And it's like, this is slamming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now what you have to do, I'm glad you brought that up, because now what you have to do is when you have a flavor that's so heightened, now you have to almost change your dish, your whole concept of your dish to balance it out, right? So let's say, I'm using the chicken stock and the chicken has so much flavor. I don't want that now to overpower everything else that's in the dish. So now I'm going to have to use those same, how do I put it? I'm going to have to use the same techniques with everything else that I'm making now, right? But then I also have to make sure that the idea of that plate is that the chicken takes the height of the dish, right? So there's a lot of thought that now is going to have to go into it. But another thing that I want to do is also, I'm thinking about, a while ago I got into fat washing, brown butter, whatever it may be. And I was thinking to myself, okay, how could I incorporate this into food? So one thing that we make is quite a bit is, actually Dano was talking about this today, miso. We make a miso and brown butter beurre blanc. 9 out of 10 times it breaks because the brown butter is very hard to emulsify. So now I'm thinking to myself, well, what if I fat wash the wine in the beurre blanc with brown butter, right? Now I'll have the flavor in there, right? And now maybe I use half whole butter and half brown butter, and it'll help the emulsification, right? But going back to the chicken stock too, now since you're not reducing with heat and it's all cold, it's almost like the flavors of a cold brew rather than like a hot coffee.
So I actually want to just jump in real quick on this. So first off, Panda and Sons, hands down one of the most innovative bars, restaurants in the world right now. Had the pleasure of meeting the team at the Brooklyn Bar Convention, and they ran me through a lot of it verbally. Really nice guys, told me anything I need to know. Shout out to them. We linked up on social media and stuff, and they were like very open to helping me with anything I'd do. And I told them that I'm opening up this place, and they were like, look, anything you need. Really nice Scottish guys. One of the gents, the main guy, I believe it's Panda Bartender or Panda Cocktails as his tag on Instagram. We'll put it in there. But he actually ranked 9th in the world in leaders of our industry this year, which I think was low considering what he's bringing to the industry. And he also is one of the guys who's on the forefront of these techniques that now you're using, Tom. So I think that, so they have multiple techniques. They're all about cryo. It's all about using cold. And just to give an insight on why they're doing it, they're trying to showcase the level that beverage has gotten to, and to almost separate it from culinary arts, so that even though it is, but they wanted to show that beverages, after getting to the point where we don't just take the techniques used by the culinary team, we actually create techniques that the culinary team can use too now. And I think that's basically what they are on the forefront of. Is they don't just want to take from the culinary techniques, they also want to show that, like, there's culinary techniques that, and you're after applying one beautifully. Like, as you can see, it's like, to get your glaze in 15 seconds is something that's so beneficial to a culinary team who wants to work on something. Like, you got to flash something, get out there right away in service. But it can go into so many different directions. One that you said is like coffee. You're saving space, right? I'm not saying that this is how it goes, but could you have a coffee store where you freeze-dried separate individual, servings of coffee, and you're like, these are all medium coffees, dehydrated. Someone wants a coffee, bang, here you go, ready to rock. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way it will go, but it's possibilities that are now coming to fruition, and you're seeing that these techniques will definitely change the game that we're using. And I want to say that the guys in Shinji's, they also did one as well. Shinji's is a cocktail bar. I want to say Noda is
It's the front part of
it's the front
it's
part,
front part
of
of
Noda,
Noda, yeah.
which is like a Michelin restaurant right now, like Asian. But the beverage director there, he's been using freeze drying to do the same thing with cream, so he can create like a Ramos gin fizz in like 15 seconds, which everyone knows that takes like, a lot of effort, a lot of time.
Takes, 15 minutes.
Yeah, so they've done the same thing with the cream, where now they're making it into like a condensed cube, freeze dried, and then they just shake this cream into it, and next thing you know, your Ramos gin fizz. So it's like, you're gonna see these techniques at some point. They're gonna be used by creative people like yourself, who are gonna use them in different ways that are, and the industry is gonna bloom. Just like with sous vide, when someone came out with sous vide, it's like, right, one guy used it, this makes sense for this. Next thing you know, we're using it in 100 different ways, and it's like revolution for the whole industry. And I think that what the guys at Panda and Sons are doing, and it just goes to show, just by you've been playing around with this for what, like 2 weeks now?
Yeah.
And just being, just getting an insight to what this is, and then to back engineer it the way you have, to back into the culinary program, and then to see such an, not obvious, but such a like optimal way of doing something that you've already been doing that can just save you so much time is, and storage. The storage is huge, especially for like restaurants in New York that are small, don't have a lot of storage capacity. It's like, to see that you can save something for so long, to see that you can basically skip a whole 8-hour step that now can be done instantaneously to create a dish that should take a long time. It's like, this is kind of where we're going with the whole industry, and to start to see us give back to the culinary, where it was we were just pulling everything out of the culinary, and how can we use what the guys in the kitchen are using to upgrade the beverage program. Now to see it go back the other way again is like something that I think is beneficial to both front and back of house, but also it's like, it's beautiful in the way to see people who are bartenders care as much as chefs do for the first kind of time, as opposed to just bartenders watching the chef and being like, oh, how can I take this? And I think it's something that's creating more camaraderie inside the restaurant, because when me and Rob speak, I know Rob is like genius culinary, but I also know that I do things sometimes that he's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. And now we're going back and forth almost where I can take from what he's doing. And there's times where he can take from what we're doing. And it creates like a great, once more the word, like harmony between front and back of house. And it's like mutually beneficial because like what you're saying, at what point does your beverage, it might be out there, but at what point do they use that glaze? Or do they just take one of your freeze-dried chicken stocks and actually introduce it into the beverage program?
So what I want to do is I want to actually have a night, where I work where just the technique is the same.
Right.
So basically I want to educate people on this new technique, this new process that we're incorporating into our food. But the people have to want to be educated, right? So let's say they come in, we have this dinner. So I'm using the technique of freeze drying the chicken stock, to heighten the flavor of the chicken stock, to remove the dilution. So now I want to have a drink that's using that same technique that I'm going to be able to pair with whatever dish I'm making with that chicken stock. And then maybe the next course is another technique where, it might be the freezing of the liquid and then letting it melt down. And I'm using that technique in that dish, and then the drink is. So basically, course by course, using these different techniques and then being able to come out each course, speak to the guests, explain to them the techniques, how it was used. I just think it would be really exciting, not only for us as chefs and bartenders, but for the guests as well. And it's going to create a whole new experience.
I think you usually have, it's always been, back of house, front of house. I think that's going to come to an end. That divide is coming to an end where it's like, I want to sit down with them and just be like, what cocktails do you have coming out? Because I want to pair the dish to their cocktails. I want to sit here and be like, what can we create that's going to be phenomenal, amazing, and new to the industry? So that divide of back of house and hating the front of the house and them always bumping heads, I think in the next couple of years, that's not even going to be existent, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, amazing, exactly. It shows a bond between the both.
So if I think about my career, right, like from when I started to now, the influence on wine and food has just progressed immensely. Even my mom now is trying to pair wine with food, and I think the route is going to change. I think the route's going to change. I think it's going to go, I think now it's partly going into beer as well. Now with all these craft breweries and stuff popping up, but I think eventually it's going to go more into cocktails. And I think, it's going to turn into, we're going to see a lot of areas where, you're going to order a cocktail and it's going to come out with, maybe a little hors d'oeuvre or something, that you're going to be able to pair with.
So funny enough, myself and James right now are, taking a deep dive into our cocktail program that we're building for the OMC, the place we're in right now. And we're trying to outdo ourselves like by a margin. And one thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to create a 12 cocktail menu where there's going to be 4 categories and each category has 3 tiers. And we want the tiers to completely correlate across the menu that just by handing your drink if you're a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 on the menu. And I'm not going to give too much away, but based on like what we're doing here, it's going to be, we're going to label each tier a different code name, and the code names are based on this being a CIA operation. So it'll be like top secret would be the first tier. The second tier would be, third tier is covert, and the second tier is...
Confidential.
That's what I was thinking.
Top secret.
No, top secret is the second tier will be classified. So you're going to have top secret for the first tier, classified for the second tier, and our third tier is going to be covert. So it's based on us building a cocktail bar based on a CIA operation. So in the first tier, we want to use one technique across the whole tier itself that makes it obvious. Let's say we have flavored ice. Your first tier is all flavored ice, time and dilution changes your cocktail. That will be the first tier. Second tier, whatever it is. Third tier, maybe we do exactly what you're talking, a switch technique along with spherification, whatever it is that we end up doing. But along that way, exactly what you're speaking about is something that we're planning on making videos. So our third tier, there'll be so much elaborate and sophisticated techniques and just like work gone into this that we're going to need to elaborate via a video. So we'll show what we're doing back of house on the video when you get the cocktail. That's one of like the third tier of covert. It's going to be so much that we need to explain. So just like you're saying, where you would come out, we want to create like a video link to when you get your cocktail that it's going to basically go down on what we did, why we did it, and then finishing off with something like maybe our chef coming in and being like, by the way, this cocktail has been built to pair with these 2 dishes on the menu, right? Oh. So these are like just merging the front of house and the back of house and the guests' experience together so that they, one, are learning something, which is, if you learn something off of a dish, great benefit, you're happy. 2, if we can make them laugh if we can make the video like somewhat comical and also gives you a flavor of what this space is meant to be. Mm-hmm. And then 3, it shows you the work that's gone into it. And sometimes the work that goes into something goes over people's heads. And because it goes over people's head, they don't see how special what the product that they're getting is. And then on the 4th note, then you have the chef come in and tell you, by the way, this drink has been built and purposely designed to pair great with these 2 plates. And then that's something that we would like to incorporate into what we're doing here. And I think it speaks on what you're saying, where it's like you're going to have a visual as a guest of what we're doing back of house and how we link up with our culinary team and how all this thought has went into this. And now you have a visual aspect of it. Hopefully we make you laugh. Hopefully we teach you something. Hopefully we get you to pair your drink with a plate, and now you've understanding that the flavors and why things pair together, and now your experience is richer for the whole. But that's the 3-tier cocktail menu that we're working on for here. But I think it's like it speaks a lot on what you're saying with front of house, back of house merging and the harmony that we need to get to create some like perfect experiences, which is what we're going to try aim for, try our best. Yeah. But I think that you're going to see a lot more of, especially with the technology, you're going to see a lot more of the merging from front of house, back of house, and the guest getting to see what's happening with specific things, which I think is great. It's like if you see on a menu, it says oleo sacro, right? We all know oleo sacrum or oleo citrate. If you see that on a menu, you're kind of like, all right, that's work. You're going to acknowledge it if you know it. You're going to be like, all right, that's work. But if you don't know it and you're unaware to it, right, you're just going to read that and be like, no idea what that is. Now, if you have a video when you get your drink of someone actually peeling, covering, making the oleo citrate, if you have a video, you're going to value the product more because you're going to see and understand what's gone into it more, right. Which is like, something that I think when you're paying for something, if you can see how much work's gone into this before you've got it, you're going to have more value and more worth in the product that you got. You're going to have less problem paying for it. Like everyone knows, like there's nothing worse than when you pay for something and then afterwards you're like, I don't mind paying for something, but when afterwards I feel like I'm after getting one-upped, I'm like, that wasn't worth what I paid for it. That's an issue. Now, if I pay for something and I'm like, right, just like what we said yesterday, we went to a place, James Beard Award. We bought a bottle of water, no problem. You're paying like whatever it is, $8-10 for the bottle of water for the table. They peeled a lemon and put it in all of our glasses, which to me, I was like, I got a nice lemon flavor in here because I got a lemon peel in here now. The oils and the essences are hitting my nose, but at least you did something, right? At least you did something. I paid for this bottle of water. At least something extra was done because I bought the water, as opposed to just like, here's your water, I'm charging you, just putting it on the table. I think that just little things like that, showing the guest, or even if they don't know it, it's like creates the difference between places. But I do think what you were saying is like on point. We're definitely trying to merge the front of house, the back of house, the culinary experience, the beverage program. We're definitely trying to, but being able to get that across to a guest is a special thing, right? When you can't get it across to a guest, doesn't matter. Like, you
Right.
get a woman in or a man in who, the man just wants a Jack and Coke, the woman, she just wants a Tito's and soda. They just want a BLT, and then you come out with a BLT that's like got all the extra thought put into it, all the extra work. Maybe you made like, whatever it is, like a dill mayonnaise, and maybe there's a lot gone into this, and they just have no idea and they don't care. And they just want their standard what they get, and then they're wondering like, how come this is like $4 more than every other sandwich I bought? And it's
you
like,
gotta
well,
break it down.
Yeah, and it's like, now if we can show you why.
I love that.
That's what I think where you're making it. It's like, right, well, you don't have to eat here, but at least you understand why it's more when you are eating here, because we care more, we're putting more into it, and we're trying to give you more. You don't have to. You can go to Anthony's Deli next door. You can go down the street to anywhere and get a bacon, egg, and cheese for $4. I think that's.
We had a guest on the podcast a couple of months ago. His name was Gato. He's one of our Gato Edgar owns Veracruz, and one of the things I constantly call Veracruz for is a semita, carnita semita, right? For those of you who don't know, it's like a traditional Mexican sandwich. It's like this, it's like a huge football-sized sandwich, right? But one of the things that he does, and I only recently realized it, that I can pick up on because I'm not Mexican, I don't know the intricacies of the flavor. But no matter when you get the sandwich, the avocado that's in the sandwich is always perfectly ripe. And it's one of those things that you might overlook. But every single time I've gotten the sandwich, I'm like, man, these are the ripest avocados I've ever got. And that little attention to detail every single time is something that people might be like, oh, it's just an avocado. It's like, no, it's not an avocado. It's the perfectly ripest avocado that went into this sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, the little details is what makes all the difference.
Devil's
like,
in the details.
if the avocado, for example, wasn't ripe and it was like crunchy or hard or maybe a little bit like acidic, it would just the sandwich just wouldn't be as good. And then that goes the same along the lines with the pork and with the cheese and with the bread and with the chipotle paste and all that. All of that stuff plays in the role. And if you overlook one thing, you might as well just overlook everything.
I feel like that's, if you don't get that across, not everyone picks up on it. And then you're left in the moment of like, they don't find a value in what they're getting, right? If someone overlooked the avocado being perfect every time, and the fact that avocado is expensive, and the fact that this guy probably throws out a load of avocados that aren't the right consistency, then you'll be like, why is this sandwich an extra $1 next door? But I think that getting across to people that you get what you pay for, and then giving them proof, like giving them video evidence or giving them some people don't need proof. Some people, they just haven't know. They understand what's happening. But the majority of the public, they probably don't know what's gone into a lot of things. And it's like a soup, right? You go get a soup for $6 and then you go and get a soup for $11. And you should expect that the $11 soup has a lot more gone into it. But if you're just some dude just buying soup who really doesn't care about anything but what you're dipping your bread into.
I had soup one time for $17.
Was it good?
It was fucking phenomenal. Yeah,
Was
$17.
it French onion?
No, it wasn't French onion. It was like mushroom something. I was like, yo, this might be the best soup I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was $17.
There might not be anything better than good soup, honestly. When you get a really good soup, it's funny how some of the best things, bread and butter, right? It's like you get good bread and good butter, and you're there. Like, there's not much more you can do. Like, I'm happy. I'm honestly happy. I'm as happy with really good bread and butter as I am with really good steak. Like, the enjoyment in both moments is equal for me. Now, I'm not going to have for dinner bread and butter, but I'm going to enjoy it equally as much as I am a good steak. And funny enough, something that actually we were chatting about and it came to our minds, but this is probably a little additive to it. It's like we were talking about foams and how like foams are big right now. Wouldn't it be nice if you made like a recipe book, and it was just foams and butters? And it was just like 100 pages, 50 pages of different foams and 50 pages of different butters. And there you go. Here's your foam and butter recipe book. Like, I feel like it's very hard to dial in on foams. There's so many different ways to do them. You can do, like, you know, vegan ones. You can do garbanzo beans. You can use egg whites. You can do methyl cellulose, agar, you know, whatever you want to use. There's 100. You just use cream, you know. You can use gelatin sheets. There's a million different ones to do. Wouldn't it be good if we, like, came up with, like, a foam, like, Rob, I think, was looking for it yesterday. There's no phone books, right?
No, I'm actually collecting a bunch of recipes now. I'm gonna print them out for us since we're gonna be playing with them so much, just to have a
Just do a little pocketbook of forms. But I was telling you guys this yesterday. There's a guy on Instagram he's blown up now, and it's all he does is just do different kinds of butter, all different kinds of butter, smoked salt butter, paprika butter,
which is so easy
chive
to do.
butter, smoked salmon butter,
I want a
rock
caraway
salt
butter.
berry butter, and it comes on. Every episode's exactly the same. It's like maybe 20 seconds long. It's just like edited. It's like chop, 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 all put together. And at the very end, there's a nice, sexy cannelle every single time. He puts it on. He takes a bite. He goes, and it's like, And he goes, this is smoked salt butter. And then it's just like chop, 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 butter, smoked salmon, salt, blend, mix it with this, do with that, chop, 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 cannelle.
Sometimes the
I'm like,
convincing,
this
right?
is deadly.
Sometimes the convincing just of like,
Yeah.
Right.
But he convinced me anyway, I'll tell you
That's
that.
what we should definitely do that. We should just make
This
a video of
is
all of us
coffee
drinking our
butter.
cocktails, take a sip. The best ever.
Good old propaganda.
This is Negroni butter.
Negroni butter.
So, talking about bread and butter, and talking about, Dano, what you were saying, like guest interaction, right? The ability for them to learn, be educated, look at these videos. So that's always something that I try and create with the food as well. So recently on the bread and butter, we made butter candles. So we basically took butter. We actually got it from Rodney Brook Farms because it was a farm to table.
Yeah,
menu.
we know Rodney Brook Farms. They do like all the natural milks and all the natural butters and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, we like them a lot.
Yogurts,
Yeah.
smoothies, excellent. So we got the butter from them, infused the butter with different herbs, garlic, and then poured it into little glass ramekins with a wick. And we made, in a sense, a candle out of the butter.
What was your favorite butter flavor that you've made?
So we've only done this once. So it was just a simple garlic and herb, thyme, rosemary, and garlic.
I bet you it was banging.
It was amazing. So
A fun
lit the
experience,
whisks.
though.
Yeah, every single person. We were doing a dinner for like 60 people. So every person had their own candle. They had their bread, and we lit the candles, I want to say maybe 5 to 10 minutes before they came in. It started to melt. And then what also happened was as the fire was like hitting the butter, it was like almost like crackling.
Given because of the herbs,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So it was really cool, and you could smell it, and they were dipping their bread into the butter as it melted. So it was a cool experience, something that was going to create a memory,
You're going to see that over in Red Horse soon. He's just going to have like his dangling bacon from a washing line, and now he's going to steal your butter candles.
You might. I
Right.
mean, you could do it with lobster too,
The old sea roach. It's funny, right? Isn't that's what lobster is? It's like basically like a sea roach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It
a
even
bottom,
loo- it even
bottom
looks-
feeder. I
it
don't
even
like
looks
lobster.
like
It
that.
started
It's a
off
bottom
as
feeder.
food
Yeah,
for
it was
like
prison food.
Prisoners,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I like that.
And
It
they
e-
were
it even
killing people
looks
because
like
of the
one.
mercury that they were all consuming from them.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
right? This is what you get in prison, and then like 20, 50 years
Here's
later,
a
whatever
$50
it is,
lobster. Pay
it's like,
$50 for this.
yeah, it's like this is now our delicacy.
Yeah, it even looks like one. It even has like an exoskeleton and everything.
You know what's funny
But
is
you
like
think about it, it's like
I
it's
don't know why I
fucking
even liked
gross.
lobster. I don't like lobster now. I hate it. But I used to love lobster. And then I'm like, I wonder was I just propaganded into loving
Yes,
lobster?
that's
It's
exactly what
Because I
happened.
couldn't afford it. Growing up, you can't afford a lobster. Next thing you know, you get a paycheck where you can buy a lobster and you're like, I'm
Red
rich.
Lobster's got to be the biggest con in the world, man. They're just taking roaches from the sea and making people pay high price for
And
it.
they did say you would eat the bugs and you would like it. They just didn't tell us they were going to start off with the sea bugs.
Nothing worse than cleaning lobster.
I hate
Yeah.
you have to kill them, you have to clean them. They're so dirty inside, so they don't have a bunch of eggs in them. It's the most
Eggs.
annoying
I did
thing.
What
so
and what's
many-
that green stuff?
That's
Sorry,
a roe.
Tom, I
That's the
apologize.
roe. Yeah.
So what's it called?
Bro.
roe.
The roe.
Yeah,
Or
that's the egg.
I always wondered what they meant when they
A
said
lot
roe
of
v.
flavor
Wade.
in it.
We actually made
my
we would put that into a butter and make
Yeah.
a roe butter. Like
Yep.
it comes out really good.
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you
That's-
said that's the
And you
line.
cook it on top of the
And
lobster.
what
That's
is it?
terrible.
What is it? That's the line. What is it again? The roe. Like, can you tell us what it is?
It's like a sack of eggs.
It's almost like the caviar of the lobster.
The roe is the caviar from the lobster.
The caviar for the lobster. I like how we like just put terms on things to
But
make us
it's
feel good
messy.
about it.
It's messy and it's
Yeah.
just.
It's green. It's It's
And the
It's
lobsters, like after they're dead, they just keep moving. Like they just don't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very.
They don't stop. They stop when you throw them into a boiling pot, though, right?
Yeah, they
You
will
see
stop.
people
But like
live-
let's say you cut off the tail, you're just stacking up tails. Like all those tails are still like going like this. Like,
Right.
they're just still-
And see, when you're doing that, do you do the Gordon Ramsay way where you
Split
stab
them
them
in
in
the
the
brain.
brain
Yeah,
and slice
that's
down?
the most humane way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about into the
Usually-
boiling pot?
That's okay. Let me throw you into a boiling pot.
You're
I'm
gonna
not a
tighten
lobster.
up.
Yeah.
You're not
different.
be
I'm gonna
tender,
ask
you're
you to
firm
stop.
up.
You know,
It's
I
actually-
Like if the lobster was able to be like, you know what? I'd rather you didn't throw me to the boiling pot now. Like, go fuck
No, but it
yourself.
should be dead before you.
I
Into the
agree.
pot? Is
I
it
agree.
dead?
It'd be more tender. He's like.
He's
think
dead.
about it. Yeah, you're dead.
I
You're not
agree, yeah.
tensing up while you're.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
You know, it's true. It's true. And like, to be honest, man, if you're gonna throw something into a boiling pot and it's gonna be tortured for 2 minutes, like boiling
You don't
alive.
last 2 minutes.
Well, let's say even 30 seconds. You're
You're
gonna be
not only
tortured
burning,
for
but
30
you're
seconds.
drowning at the same time.
Yeah, and
that's-
you're
How can a
inside-
lobster
Yeah.
drown? What are we talking about?
No, what you're saying, like, imagine being boiled. Like, you're not, like, imagine that.
Yeah, well, that's different.
I'm still
for me.
thinking about you in the pot.
All right.
Yeah, but if you think about
Look at him there drowning.
Man,
I've been
like-
trying to drown this lobster for the last 10
But
hours.
man,
I know
like-
what's happening.
the-
Honestly, I think the worst way to die is drowning.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is,
yeah.
but not for fish.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
Yeah, for us, for sure.
I think that's like the worst way to die.
That's my biggest fear is drowning.
Yeah.
I don't want to drown.
just don't get into any submarines and you'll be fine.
Oh.
Man, you know what?
Oh, here we
If you
go.
get into a submarine, you shouldn't drown. And I bet them people didn't have time to drown. I bet that thing collapsed and they didn't drown. I bet they just imploded.
Imploded, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. The man in charge wasn't around. That was the problem.
The man in
The
charge.
man in charge was driving the damn.
No, he
submarine.
wasn't. He was
Right,
driving.
So
he wasn't
since
in
we're
charge.
on the subject of the submarine, what do we all think about this submarine?
It was a very great distraction. I will say that. We were looking for people that were dead for a couple of days.
Didn't they know that
It's a big
the-
waste of money.
Didn't they know that the submarine imploded on Sunday and they didn't tell us until the
Exactly,
following
that's what happened. Until
week
Thursday.
or something? But it was to block up a lot of the news.
There was a lot of news going
news
on.
source, yeah.
Yeah, there was crazy stuff happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was something with J.P. Morgan and Jeffrey Epstein, right?
They deleted 140,000 emails, was
No,
it?
I think it was like 47 million emails
JP Morgan.
between J.P. Morgan and Jeffrey
yeah, they were
Epstein.
under
Yeah,
investigation.
Something
and they had
crazy.
to
Something
give
crazy.
up all this paperwork to the courts, and they deleted it. Like,
Yeah,
legit
they were like,
deleted
yeah.
it.
Fair play to them.
And
What
then
else
they-
would you do?
Oh, and then the second's just gonna give them a fine.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Money.
They done some
What else
crazy
do you
shit,
want
yeah.
from
Did you hear
these
about this
people?
No.
Yeah, there's some crazy shit there.
Of course you didn't. We were too busy looking for the submarine.
submarine.
Me and you were out there looking for the submarine, and you two were sitting there being like, "Well, what's happening with JP Morgan and Jeffrey
No, man,
Epstein?"
that's a
and I'm
big
just like,
cover-up.
I wonder if the submarine seen the Titanic before it imploded.
It was kind of obvious, and to be honest, it's happened before in the past several times. When you're just living your daily life and a news story becomes so big that everybody is talking about it, and I noticed it myself
Wait, hold
walking
on,
around the
James.
restaurant.
Are you telling me that when Kanye West and Kim Kardashian broke up, and that was on the news, that something else important might have been happening that I should have been paying attention to?
Wink, wink. But as you're walking, as I was walking around the restaurant, I go to this table here in the corner, and they're like, "Yeah, it imploded. It was crazy." Go over to this other table. These people don't know each other at all. They're like, "Yeah, apparently, they didn't want to hire these other guys because it was considered whatever." Like they're talking about it, but everybody is talking about it. I wasn't really talking about it because I had deleted Instagram at the time, thankfully. But other people were talking about it. I'm like, this story is everywhere. And it's one of those things that just like glosses over for like 2 weeks and everybody's talking about it and then it's gone by and then it's in the past. I'm like, that's very peculiar. Every single person was talking about this, but why?
Probably because it was the Titanic.
I think it's because they were pushing it heavy because they're like, this is all people can talk about. Like, I don't know if anybody remembers, but remember Blackout Tuesday a couple of years back? There was just one random day out of nowhere where
Everyone
everybody
did
was
black
posting
pictures.
just an all black picture, and it was like Blackout Tuesday, Blackout Tuesday, Blackout Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
And there was something happening that day, right?
I know you know. I know
Yeah.
you know what was happening that day.
Tell me.
Yeah, I remember what you told me was happening that day.
I remember.
Do you remember?
I don't remember what was happening. I want to know. I remember the blackout picture. Yeah, I think there's still profiles that still have it
Yeah.
posted.
All right, Jim B, go on.
What was
Spill the
going
beans.
on?
I might misspeak here, so I want you to correct me if I misspeak. But apparently Hillary Clinton was on trial that same day.
It was a day that she was in court.
Wow.
Yeah, like a huge court case. She was in court.
trouble.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty much. I think that happens on every side of politics. Like on any given day, that there's something serious happen in politics that like we maybe would lose faith in. Whether it's on the left or the right, it happens both ways. If it's something that we would lose faith in the person for, or the narrative would break down, a lot of the time they'll create like, oh, Kim Kardashian got her foot caught in the door today and, you know, her nipple slipped out.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
But also,
Or
while
if
that
like
submarine-
Jennifer
submarine,
Lopez are
while
back
that
together.
submarine was happening, we misplaced $6 billion, was it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love the
6
term. They
billion
say
cents.
they fat fingered $6 million.
Man, I've never
Like-
fat fingered anything.
Yeah.
I've never I've never sent
Let alone
anybody
$6
money that's
billion.
weren't meant to get,
Yeah.
honestly.
But imagine that, like, there was just so much going on that week that we
That's-
just didn't know about.
That's
But
how it is,
honestly, the
isn't it?
memes were worth it. The memes for the submarine were worth it. Like I'm sitting around and I'm just like scrolling through my daily feed, looking for cocktail stuff, looking for like culinary stuff, and I'm just constantly getting like hilarious memes about a submarine that killed a lot of billionaires or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of it is a little bit, honestly. It's strange how we dehumanize people based on how much money they have, and it's almost like a jealousy thing, right?
Of
I'm not
course.
sure if it's jealousy or
No,
if it's like
it's definitely an element of it.
yeah, it's an element of it. It's like, oh, because we don't care about these people because they have so much money. And then I'm like, I don't think that how much money these people had. Like, how do you know they didn't get this money from doing amazing things for people? Right? Like, we don't even know how any of these people got this money. Right? We just know they had a lot of money, and because of it, it's funny that they died in a submarine.
Well, you know what's funny also is that I think like another country was offering to help because they had a vessel that can go down about 3,000 more feet than the vessel that America had, and America said no.
Well, like,
So I wonder like that, but that pulls a play into like how many days can we extend this? We're not. Gonna,
yeah,
like,
definitely. It's like, right, if I'm having an issue in my kitchen, right, and then I say it to Tom in passing, and Tom's like, oh, I've got a guy who can help you, but I actually don't want the help because I'm like, the kitchen's okay. I'm just like saying something. Then it's like, do I really need like to call in this favor of someone who can actually come in and help something that I know is nonsense now? You know, it's like, it's,
I already know how when I'm a billionaire and I just want to retire peacefully.
yeah.
I'm just gonna tell everybody I'm going to see the Titanic and I'm gonna make sure that vessel goes down and implodes, and I'm just gonna be like, I'm dead. Everybody leave me alone.
And when you
Yeah.
say
Life.
retire peacefully,
Yeah, I don't want
That's,
to be known by anybody.
I know when you say retired, you mean like just sit on the beach for the rest of your life?
Yes, for the rest of my life.
Really?
No, I want
You
to sit
get
on my
bored.
farm and make
If
my
I'm
own
gonna,
food and
like,
do
listen,
what I want to
you
do.
get
and
If
bored.
I'm going to
You get
sit
bored
on the
there. You work-
beach
you
for the
work
rest of
hard
my
and you get
life,
bored.
I'm going to build the biggest sand castle that anyone's ever seen. You know when you're a kid and you start building sand castles and you get like a big one, but it's like, it's big, like, 4 feet tall big. I want one day someone to show up and be like, what happened here? There's a whole just castle made out of sand, like full-sized castle, and I'll be sitting in it just on a throne, skeleton, dead. And they'll be like, this is what he did. This is where he stood his last ground. And that'll be it. That'll be the name. And on top, I'll just have a little dry freezer that's just freezing all of my food that'll last 35 years inside the sandcastle. You know what's actually one, before we go any further, is like, something that I found fascinating was the underground fridges that people are building, right? You see these,
I
like,
did see that. Yes.
you see these like underground fridges that people are building, and they stay cool because it's under the earth. You dig down, you create maybe whatever it is, like a 85-gallon size, hole, and then they insulate it, and then they just put in a wind turbine or some sort of fan that turns on like twice a day at nighttime and like before the sun comes up, and it creates airflow, and that's it. No electricity, no nothing, and your food's kept good. That's something that I think's like, that's solid. That's something that we should all be like, they should be figuring out how to do that like everywhere. Like, just if you really wanted to help the environment or whatever, every single home in the world has a fridge in it, or almost. Like, I'm gonna go out there and say almost every home in the world has a fridge in it. Definitely in like our world, like
Yeah, first world countries.
how and
Yeah.
when does the fridge turn off? Never. Right, so it's like constant, infinite use of electricity. If we could just build a little ground, like if in your basement, it was mandatory that in a basement you had a fridge, you'd save a lot of electricity there as opposed to electric cars where it's like we got a cobalt mine.
No, the way to do it now is just to block out the sun and stop global warming. That's
I
it.
like blocking out the sun.
That's it. You know,
Blocking out the
block
sun.
out
is
the
way
one
to
thing
do
that
it.
we need to
I like it.
survive.
I also like to speak on like the ice being smoked. I wonder if I can like get Canadian smoke, the Canadian smoke, and make it into an ice cube and be like, here's your Canada smoked ice cube, old fashioned.
Blame Canada.
Yeah, blame Canada, old fashioned. The smoke inside this ice comes directly from
call it the
wildfires in Canada.
The neighbor.
Brilliant.
My friend, my neighbor.
Yeah. All right, lads. Listen, we're getting to the end.
Yeah.
About that time, wrap up. So if anyone wants to visit Chef Tom, give us how can we find your Instagram? Where are you at?
Yeah, so my Instagram account is Chef Tom B 917. On that Instagram, there's links to my email. I do private parties, catering, even cooking classes. So everything's on there. All the pictures of my food. So that's probably the best way.
He also caters party and deep sea submersibles. If anybody wants to go on a submarine and they're looking for a packed lunch, Chef Tom got you.
It's only one toilet though.
All right, lads. Another episode of the Naked and Famous podcast. Thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure to have Chef Tom.
Thank you all.
Nice.
Thank you guys. Have a good
Thank
one.
you so much.
Sláinte, lads.